Once I hit 40, my scale kept going up no matter what I did. At least until I came across the book Atomic Habits. Because once I took those strategies and applied them to my routine, that's when my fat loss efforts took off. Applying these strategies was so life-changing that for the first time in decades, losing 50 pounds actually felt easy, even after turning 40. Well, maybe not easy, because let's be real, this is hard, but definitely easier than anything else I've tried. And after sticking with these tiny habits for several years, let's just say there's something to it. So in this video, I'll show you the exact strategies I took from the book to lose 50 pounds at a time when nothing else worked. And trust me, that's a big deal. Big enough that I still use these same strategies today to keep the weight off for the first time in my life, which is no small feat after 30 years of trying really freaking hard. But what finally made fat loss easy was establishing this first simple habit. When I first began my journey to drop 50 pounds, I put together my daily habit tracker, which was meant to help me figure out why nothing else worked. But I didn't just search for some random habit tracker. I built one that uses the actual data from my body to figure out my weight loss sweet spot. Like how many calories I need to eat, how many steps I need to hit, and to narrow in on what it takes for me to drop around 1 pound each week. And this tracker has been my ride or die ever since. In fact, it's the reason I've stayed at a healthy weight instead of slipping right back into my yo-yo dieting norm. Because even when my goal is just to maintain, I still take 5 minutes to track every day. When I first started, I kept this tab pinned to my computer. So it was the first thing I saw every time I opened my laptop. That meant no excuses, no, I forgot, because it was always right there in my face, making it impossible to ignore. Which, if your goals are out of sight, they're out of mind. At least until your next, I can't lose weight, why won't this work for me? Tantrum. Keeping this tab open was an obvious cue to plug my numbers in first thing, which got my brain together right off the bat, reminding myself, hey, this is what I need to focus on today if I want to lose weight. And if you're not in the habit of reminding yourself every day what actually matters, you will stay stuck. But making it obvious doesn't end with the tracker. I started other small habits like removing any hint of junk food from my counters, putting it out of sight, buried way in the back of the cabinet. Because every time I'd catch a glimpse of chips or cookies, my brain had to decide, do I want that? And even if 99% of the time I'd say no, just seeing it over and over all day wore me down. Which is how decision fatigue works. And it's one of the biggest reasons so many people give into foods that keep them stuck in weight loss purgatory. Another cue I set up is laying my workout clothes on the counter the night before, which means I don't leave morning movement up for debate. My brain sees those clothes and knows we're doing this. And it doesn't stop there. To achieve even more success, I began pre-logging meals in Chronometer as custom recipes because I've learned which meals work for me. The meals that keep me full, keep me satisfied, and keep me in a calorie deficit. Instead of leaving it to chance with whatever I was craving that day, I just do what works on repeat. And taking a few minutes to put my favorites together as custom meals makes tracking 100 times easier. If you're still letting junk food sit out on your counters or just hoping that you'll move more today, I'm telling you, that's why you're stuck. Make it obvious and stop giving your brain so many chances to talk you out of your goals. Which, if you do have big goals, you are not doing yourself any favors if you're not taking advantage of this next lesson from Atomic Habits. If you've watched my videos, then you already know that making morning walks a non-negotiable part of my day changed everything. I went from someone who constantly battles her weight to someone who dropped 50 pounds and actually keeps it off, year after year without living in the gym. And even though walking in silence has its benefits, that can get boring pretty fast. And who sticks with habits that are boring? Which is why I always pair morning walks with a podcast that keeps me fired up about my goals. Most days, that means Mind Pump. Because if I'm already putting in the steps, I might as well feed my brain the info that will take my fat loss to the next level. And this is my favorite health podcast. But if you have another one, let me know in the comments since I'm always on the lookout for more fresh content. But my general rule is simple. Most mornings are for Mind Pump. Because I'm not here to just zone out. I'm here to level up. But it didn't start that way. Back when I was struggling to hit 10,000 steps a day, I made a rule that I wasn't allowed to watch those reality shows unless I was watching from the treadmill. And since I made the habit of walking really attractive because I really wanted to watch those shows, that made it easy to hit my step goal every day. And since I was doing something I enjoyed, the time just flew by. But I was still struggling to find time to fit it all in. Sure, I was all caught up on Bravo, but what about the hours I spent each day on videos? Because all of that walking was cutting into that time. So I leveled up again with a treadmill desk. And this has been the biggest game changer so far, because now I can walk while I work. And moving while writing really helps my creative energy flow. That doesn't mean I'm sitting around like a sloth once I tune into Housewives. I still pair TV with other habits, so I'm not just sinking into the couch like a human marshmallow. Sometimes I stretch, and sometimes I tackle the Mount Everest of laundry that already piled up after folding another batch just 2 days before. Let me know if I'm the only one who washes laundry in a 3-day cycle, washing on day 1, folding on day 2, and then putting it away on day 3, only to start from scratch by day 4. I mean, it can't just be me. And even though it drives my kids absolutely nuts that it's a 3-day process to get their clothes put away, imperfect action is the only way that everything gets done, which also applies to your fat loss goals. Back in the day, everything had to be perfect before I could even think about working out. My meals had to be timed right with the perfect amount of fullness, but not so full that I'd puke on the Stairmaster. And of course, I needed the laundry pile put away so I could actually find an outfit that didn't make me feel fat at the gym. And we already talked about what a process that is. But all of this perfection meant my workouts were nearly non-existent. Because if I gave my brain the chance to think about everything being in place for a good workout, it didn't get done. But once I finally let go of that perfectionism and just started moving, everything changed. I stopped waiting for the perfect moment and just got it done first thing, which left no time for excuses, and there was no second guessing, which meant that's one giant fat loss boulder already rolled out of the way for the day. Even though I've never been one to meal prep, because I don't think I could even fit 14 perfectly portioned Tupperware containers in my disaster of a fridge, I did start meal prepping in my own way by doubling up on high-protein meals that I love. That way, it's easy to heat up leftovers for lunch the next day or even the next 3 days. Which means I've put together at least 20 recipes just with taco meat that I eat on repeat so I don't get bored. But also, let me know your go-to meal that's easy and keeps you on track so I can actually make something other than tacos. Something else I had to do was quit listening to every health influencer with their magic rules about which foods are ready and waiting to off you. Because one influencer said avocados are the ultimate health hack, while the next says they will completely destroy your estrogen. Which, I don't even remember if they cause too much estrogen or destroy it completely. But either way, avocados didn't make me gain 50 pounds, and they sure didn't help me lose it either. So I just started eating more of the foods that I actually liked, the ones that kept me full and make fat loss easy, like deli meat, which is a staple in my fat loss plan that actually did help me lose 50 pounds. And even though I've been lectured that the sodium and preservatives will kill me by tomorrow, I'm still here, still wearing smaller clothes with no signs of death in sight. Plus, I do my best to buy the better quality stuff, so maybe I can stave off my ultimate demise by at least another week or 2. But that's not all, because I also put other tiny habits in place that add up to big results. Like always having my water bottle full and next to me, which means I remember to stay hydrated. And I choose workouts and meal plans that I actually enjoy instead of some influencer's perfect idea of what healthy looks like. Because the truth is, you can't live by someone else's rules and expect it to work for you. You have to find what's easy for you and then do it every day. Because I promise that's the only way this works long term. But if you're not also using the next lesson I learned from Atomic Habits, even if you find success at the beginning, it won't be long until you find yourself starting from scratch. Weight loss that sticks isn't about watching the scale drop 5 pounds a week every week until you reach your goal. And if that's the plan that you're still chasing, I've got some really bad news. But if you are that person who's dropping these big numbers week after week while feeling amazing and not losing all of your muscle, let us know in the comments. because I have always wanted to meet a magical unicorn in real life. If you're dropping those huge numbers every single week, you're not just losing fat, you're losing muscle too. And losing muscle at our age, that is a one-way ticket to looking like this well before your time. Plus, it's the fastest way to regain every single pound because less muscle means a slower metabolism and constant cravings, which is where my trusty goal tracker saves the day again, helping me lose 50 pounds and actually keeping it off going on 3 years. First, it helped me see what realistic weight loss actually looks like for my body, which, spoiler alert, is really slow. Like, if we were watching the tortoise and the hare racing, I'd be way in the back. Let me know if you're behind the tortoise with me because I'm gonna need a walking buddy. But seeing all of this in black and white, or in my case, pink, orange, and green because I like color, helped me finally accept that this is just how long it takes. I could either accept it and keep going, or stay stuck at 200 pounds. And here's what else I learned. Losing 2 pounds in a month isn't some failure that means you're doomed to be fat forever. Even though it seems like a big fat nothing, that's something worth celebrating, especially since I wasn't torturing myself to lose those 2 pounds. Sure, I was putting in the work, but I was doing it in a way that built real, sustainable habits. And even though 2 pounds doesn't sound like much, those tiny losses added up to 50 pounds, but only because I was patient. So even if you only lost 2 pounds this week, even if you only lost 2 pounds this month, that is still progress. You put in the work for that loss, and you need to reward yourself for it. Just not with food, in case that part wasn't obvious. Maybe just take a moment to feel proud of yourself for sticking with it. Or maybe, just once, you let yourself watch The Housewives without also being on the treadmill. But just this once, because habit stacking is still the bomb for blowing up your fat loss success, which is probably the biggest takeaway I got from Atomic Habits. Especially since I know some of you working moms are sitting there in your office chair thinking, of course she can lose 50 pounds. She's a stay-at-home mom. What else is she doing all day? Listen, I've lost weight while working full-time and commuting 5 hours a day. Yeah, you heard that right. I worked 40 hours a week while spending another 25 hours stuck in traffic just to drive 25 miles back and forth. And that was before podcasts were a thing. And since Chicago traffic has zero sympathy for a 30-something woman who just wants to get home and work on her health, I've been through all of the who's actually got time for this trenches. But I've lost 50 pounds as a full-time worker, and I've lost it as a full-time mom. And let me tell you, none of it's easy. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one that's done both, but let me know if you have and you find one easier than the other. Because the way I see it, they both have their ups and downs. But once I stopped complaining about not having enough time and started stacking habits I already do anyway, that's when it finally clicked. That's when it became easier to fit it all in without losing my mind. Like walking. Right now, I'm literally walking while writing this video and wearing a fancy back brace to help fix my posture all at the same time. So that's a stack of 3 things I'm doing to up-level my life all at the same time. Same goes for stretching, cooking, and cleaning. I'm always listening to something educational in my earbuds. Because if I'm already stuck doing the dishes, I might as well feed my brain something that helps me keep improving. If I'm browning beef, I'm putting dishes away instead of mindlessly scrolling Instagram. And at the gym, if I'm waiting for a machine, I'm not just standing there like some creep staring at the person until they move. Instead, I find another machine that does the same thing and get it done. Which, okay, that's probably not exactly habit stacking, but it is still using my time effectively. And maybe, just maybe, a little reminder for that creepy guy in the corner that there are other machines, so stop staring and start lifting. Anyone else got a creepy gym stalker? Which I'm sure he just identifies as someone who wants to use the pull-up machine. And that leads me into the next big lesson I took from Atomic Habits. And if you haven't mastered this one yet, you will stay stuck right where you are. But once I started identifying as someone who's already reached her goals, even when I was still 50 pounds overweight, that's when everything changed. Because shifting from someone who's trying to lose weight to someone who just takes care of her body is the mind shift you need to make for fat loss to work. The truth is, someone who's always on a diet builds her identity by stringently following every strict diet rule, at least until she cracks and ends up binging. She eats only what's listed on her meal plan until one day she snaps and devours the entire snack cabinet. But someone who's taking care of her body, she might splurge on ice cream with her kids. But then she's right back to her healthy routine the very next day. She doesn't wallow in guilt because of a double scoop of butter pecan. She knows balance means ordering high-protein meals 90% of the time, but also sometimes getting the ice cream. She doesn't spiral into brownie for breakfast the next morning just because she slipped up the night before, because she already knows that starting over every Monday doesn't work. So someone who's already at her goal weight, she just naturally lives in a way that respects her body while keeping her effort there. It's just not the all-out effort that most dieters feel like they're forced to give. And someone who identifies as already being at her goal weight, she also realizes the true power of this next rule, which is the final lesson I picked up from Atomic Habits. And let me tell you, after tracking 3 years of these tiny shifts in my goal tracker, I know this one's real. Because in more than 3 years of tracking, not one of these days ever felt life-changing. There were no big "this is it" moments where I declared I was quitting sugar. They were all just normal days where I tried to be a little better than I was the day before, even if it was just 1% better. And when I slipped up, because slip-ups happen, this time I didn't cry into a pint of Ben & Jerry's. I just got back on track with my very next decision, and I tried to be 1% better. And following this 1% better everyday rule, that's what really added up to 50 pounds gone. So no, you don't need some life-changing diet that some influencer is hyping up. You don't need to give up everything you love or suffer in the name of weight loss. You just need a few core habits, small, sustainable habits, and the willingness to keep showing up. And if you're not sure where to start building these habits, watch this video next. I show you the 17 small habits I use on repeat to build a lifestyle that's easy and one where my fat loss plan actually works. But before you click on that, let me know the one tiny habit you promised to start today. Drop it below and let's do this together.